right, everybody. So, welcome back to AutoCrit 101. For those who are watching the replay, my name is Catherine. I'm a member of the AutoCrit editing team. I'm here with Becca, and we are going to walk through the AutoCrit formatting tools. We have been doing the AutoCrit 101 series for a few weeks now. We have gone over how to plan your book in AutoCrit, how to draft your book in AutoCrit using the nifty tools like voice-to-text dictation, how to developmentally edit it for plot holes, character development, world building, and things like that, how to line and copy edit on a technical editing level to improve our readability and flow. And now we are here for formatting. So if you're just now tuning in, we do have a list for you guys of all the past replays. I believe Becca's got that we can drop in the chat for you guys. And you can catch up with any of the ones you have missed. Thank you so much, Becca. If you're watching this on YouTube, there is an entire YouTube playlist as well that you can go to our channel to get. Ideally, before you do your formatting today, or after today, watching the replay later, you will have a completely edited book. You don't want to waste a whole lot of time formatting the book while you still have to edit it, because then you have to go back and reformat it all over again. So go ahead and make sure that the book is polished. It's basically publication ready, or what we like to call print ready. It can go out today and be printed tomorrow and be good to go. Now let's talk a little bit about after that as well. While we don't have AutoCrit 101 classes built into publishing, because of course, once you format your book in AutoCrit, it's sort of on you as the writer to move on to query that book or move on to self-publish that book. Becca, do you want to talk a little bit about very briefly the premium webinar we have coming up in March about how to launch a book?
We are working on month 3 in March of our marketing how-to series. So we've been going through some common issues that people have and doing a deep dive into these topics. Our first topic was how to write to market. The replays are still available to purchase through the website, as well as our most recent one, which was how to launch and grow your author newsletter, which was absolutely fantastic. We brought in an expert. I know that I've been doing this for 15 years and I learned some new things about my newsletter, so that was awesome. We are going to do how to launch your book coming up March 13th. We are going to have a guest speaker in addition to myself. If you have not taken a class with me yet, I am a prolific author. I am hybrid published, so I do have small press titles as well as indie published titles. And at book number 85 was turned in last month, so I'm feeling pretty confident, I do this full time, that I can show you how to launch a book. So we are going to do that class. I'm so excited to help lead that, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So thanks for letting me share it, Catherine.
Yeah, my pleasure. This series has had so much buzz too. If you go to the AutoCrit homepage and you scroll down, you can see some of the reviews people left about how to grow your author newsletter, which was fantastic. And these are new things that we have never launched before 2025. So we have that coming up. We also, at the end of this month, have another premium webinar coming up that's going to go over genre trends and industry insights. This is something that is brand new for 2025 and may really help you with positioning your book if you're planning to self-publish. So both of those tools are maybe next steps if you're looking to move beyond formatting and get some extra help with the actual publishing side after we finish AutoCrit 101 today. And we'll drop the link to both of those things in the chat. So on with formatting now. Why are we formatting a book? What does that mean? What is the purpose? I'm going to open the door and say there's no such thing as stupid questions. If you are wondering something today, please ask. We might take for granted, if we've been in the bookish world very long, what formatting means exactly. And so when we say formatting, we are looking at taking the rough draft, as I like to call my not quite so garbage draft anymore because it's already been fully edited, right? But you're going to take your unformatted plain text draft and convert it into a reader-facing book, right? So you can see here on the left-hand side, it's just a Word file. It's got some manual indents and a title at the top, but it doesn't have drop caps. It's not designed to be read on an EPUB or in a print PDF. It doesn't have page numbers or anything like that. So what you have in your system now, if you have been writing and editing in AutoCrit, is not the version that you want your readers to see. You want them to see the prettified version, and that is what we're going to show you guys how to do today. There are 3 key sections that come into play when you are formatting a book, whether this is fiction or nonfiction. So even if you're not a fiction writer, you can still take notes here. The front matter is going to be what we call a preamble. It is anything in front of the actual text itself. So front matter is going to usually include things like your title, your table of contents. We have a list of them and we'll get to them today. Then you have your main content. This is the actual story itself. So when the action gets going, following the main character, all of your tropes, all of your themes, going on the adventure and seeing it wrap up in the end. Then you have back matter. Back matter are the things that are going to be most important from an action point level for readers. You use your back matter to tell them about yourself and to convince them to do certain things like buy a different book, subscribe to your newsletter, follow you on social media. You are giving them actions to take with your back matter. Well, let's start at the very beginning. The very beginning in your book should have these things that you see on the screen in front of you. Now, this is a pretty long list, and if you're not using a automated formatter to help you or a paid professional and you're trying to do this on your own, then definitely take note. I'm going to show you in AutoCrit where you can go to set all of this up without having to remember, oh yeah, I do need that. I need that too. How do I design that? What do I put here? And we're going to walk through what these sections entail in more detail. So first, you're going to have your cover if this is an ebook. If this is a print book, there are often what we call a cover page or a signature page, but your front cover panel, not the spine, not the back, just the front cover image, usually goes in the very beginning of the ebooks. Then you have your signature page for your print books. This should be the blank page that you leave in the book so that readers can get your autograph at signings, or if they're too far away to come to signings, maybe you can get some giant stickers that we call book plates, sign them and mail them to your readers to put in their book, which is a nice little gesture too. I did not include a signature page in my debut epic fantasy, and I have regretted it ever since. I have signed more of those books than any other physical book that I sell. And every time someone brings me one to sign, I have to sign on the title page between the title and my name, and there's not much space, and I can't really write them, a little note or anything. It's just enough space for my signature. So do better than past Catherine. Include yourself a signature page. You're also going to include copyright and legal information. We'll walk through what some of that is here in a minute. You're going to have your table of contents if you have a print book. Now, yes, I know that there are some people who don't like them in their print books anymore, so AutoCrit has made it easy to leave it off if you really don't want it, but ebooks require a table of contents, and most people who have chapter names like to have a printed table of contents as well. The argument for not having one is typically authors of fantasy and sci-fi and genres that don't use those titles as much anymore, who just want to have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. And so with so many of our readers being e-readers these days, we don't really design that table of contents. If you do want a table of contents, AutoCrit has an automated one that builds itself out and figures out its own pages and everything, which is really nice. Then you have the acknowledgments page. That's going to be the page where you thank the people who helped you bring your book to life, or you diss the people who helped you want to quit, but you stood up and made it past without their input, right? From there, you're going to have your prologue or introduction. So I do see that we have some questions. I'm going to pop over to AutoCrit really briefly first and show you what these sections are, because that might help answer some of these questions, and then we will pause and have a dedicated time to answer. So let me pull up my AutoCrit page for you guys here. So here is that AutoCrit 101 replay section we talked about before, where you can come catch up with any of the replays themselves. But when you first log into AutoCrit, you are going to be on the dashboard. This is our dashboard. This is where you're going to see a snapshot of everything that's coming up, like those events we talked about. We update a featured forum post from the community here every week. We have reviews from past courses on here. We have an office hour featured FAQ on here and blogs. So much is on here. We're not going to spend much time there today. And what we are wanting to do, though, is get into our formatting tools. So in order to use the formatting tools, of course, your file has to already be in AutoCrit. Ideally, you've used it for the editing process, but if not, you can upload your file in a unformatted image-free file in a plain text, .rtf, .txt, or .docx format. You can upload it right here. You can also do a copy and paste into a blank file if you wish. So if I wanted to do Slayer Queen here as my formatted file, I would go in here, open the file, and then go to the Publishing tab on the very end. In the Publishing tab, there are two sub-tabs. There's this book details section and a style and theme section. You're going to start for your front matter with book details. You do not want to actually type your front matter here where it says chapter 1. The reason you don't want to do that is because anything that you type here in front of chapter 1 is going to be considered your main content, the middle, the meat of your work, and it is going to have page numbers on it. We don't usually want a page number on our table of content page, or a page number on our acknowledgments page, or a page number on our title page, or a page number on our signature page. We want the first page that gets a page number to either be our prologues or our first chapters, right? So you can leave everything else out of there. The title of the book should be typed up here in the top left corner of the book. This will autofill your title information for you here in the details. But if for some reason it does not, you can also type it out. So I can say this is the Slayer Queen. The subtitle, if you have one, would go underneath it. Please research your retailers. Some retailers require that if your book has a subtitle that it be physically printed on the actual cover or available on the ebook cover. So I could say the Slayer Queen, Duets of Dusk and Dawn, volume 1 here, but I might not use a bunch of keywords here like Slayer Queen, a grimdark vampire apocalypse, right? Unless I'm going to actually put that on the title itself. Every retailer has its own requirements, so go look that up before you make your decision. But this is a duology. It's going to be 2 books. So here's the first one. The pen name that you want actually on the book should go in the author slot. You can write this to be whatever you want. It does not have to match your AutoCrit author name. I have multiple pen names. I know Becca has multiple pen names. We can have one AutoCrit account and put in whatever pen name we wanted there. Then description is usually left blank in fiction. It is usually used in nonfiction as well as in younger readers because it's used by libraries to classify age ranges and where it goes sort of with the other books. So for example, you could say a girl is swept through a mirror into the land of the dinosaurs. Sort of just a tagline, and it would normally be printed inside your details right under the Library of Congress information. Genre fiction, like fantasy and sci-fi, doesn't always have that, so it's optional. Subjects are more commonly seen in nonfiction or, again, those younger reader categories. So things like self-help. I'm doing a memoir that could be biography and weight loss. So I could put weight loss, things like that here, or you can leave these out. If you have a publisher or you're operating under an LLC of some kind, you can put your publisher name here. Now, if you're in the US and you're going to publish and have your book in the Library of Congress, they usually require a publisher name and city. So I would put those both here, right? So I would put, since mine are self-published, Catherine D. Graham, and then the closest big city to me is Memphis, Tennessee, and that is also where I have my author PO box. So I have Memphis, Tennessee, and now I'm compliant. If you have a publisher image, which is this small image, I don't know if you're going to be able to look up and see on my video or not, that goes on the spine of the book. It's also usually printed on the inside of the book details page. That image should go there, and it should be small. This is not a full page image. Under there, you'll have slots for your print ISBN, your EPUB ISBN, your Google Books assigned number, because every Google book gets its own number, whether you have your ISBN or not, and the Amazon number. If you're putting out an Amazon ebook, even if you have your own ISBN, they will still give you an ASIN, and you can put that into your file here. If you are doing an ebook, there is also a place at the top to put your front panel for your book. And again, that should not be the full, what we call wrap, front, spine, and back. It should just be the very front cover image. You cannot insert images into the body of AutoCrit yet at this time over here on the left, but you can have this be compliant for the EPUB by dropping something in here instead. From there, any other front matter you want will be filled out with these tabs. These tabs are here to remind you that you need these pages, right? Hey, you need a title page. If you check mark this box, generate title page on export, it will take the details that you just gave and this title over here on the left, and it will automatically create you a title page. If you don't want one, you can uncheck that box, or you can create one yourself here if you don't want it to automatically fill a title page for you, if you want to use some fancy font or something like that. Just remember, when using fancy fonts and fonts in general, that not all retailers and printers support the same font families. So try to make sure the one you choose is one that can actually be printed by your printer. Then you have your copyright page. AutoCrit is not going to give you legal advice. You are going to have to research what to put in your copyright page depending on the country that you want to release your book in. As a fiction writer, I typically add a little bit to mine. So I have over here under copyright that common disclaimer, right? That this work is entirely a work of fiction. Any resemblance to people, places, events, living or dead, is entirely coincidental, that kind of thing. So go look up what you would need to have in yours. And one good way to do it too, if you're getting started, and yes, I'm totally giving you permission to just go spend some time rambling in a bookstore. You can blame AutoCrit today. Is go pull up some books that are on bookstore shelves and look at what they're putting on their copyright pages and go, oh, well, I should probably include something like that on my copyright page. Your table of contents should generate automatically. If you uncheck this box, it will not generate, but know that you have to have one in almost every US retailer for EPUB, so you have to have a table of contents for those. The only thing you would want to turn it off for is if you don't want to have table of contents for PDFs. Now, on top of those, if you saw that page that I just gave you, the list on the slides, we might want a page for acknowledgments. And you can add that as front matter here. You can put whatever else you would like to have if you're writing nonfiction and you have an introduction about yourself, and then you have a foreword from a reputable source, and then you have somebody else who's coming in to give you another introduction or an accolade. Then you might have 2 or 3 of these pages. But anything that is front matter that is not the meat of your story should be put here in this tab, which is book details. That allows your front matter to be automatically set up without you having to type it on the left-hand side, and it will generate when we get further along. All right. Let's take a look at the chat here. Yes, 85, Becca. So many congratulations on having 85 finished books. You can do any word count that you would like in AutoCrit. There is not currently a cap, thank gosh. The biggest book I've put through here is 257,000 words, which is about 47 chapters plus an epilogue. And it did not have any trouble formatting it. It's more important that you just keep your text plain text to bring it over. It should keep your italics and bold. And if you manually clicked the indent key on your keyboard, it'll keep your indents. If you bring it in and you're worried that you might have formatting in it that'll mess it up, you can also do a clean version of your file just by clicking Control A on your keyboard and click Clear Formatting. that's going to strip out any potential automated formatting that you had in here and give you a clean slate to start. Just remember to go back up to the chapters drop down if you do that and click auto find chapters, because that will remove, it will have removed your chapters when it cleared your formatting. This way you're starting out with chapters. Anything in your chapters will be included on your table of contents. And that's why it matters to have them there. They will not be big 30-point Arial font, though, when you export it out. That is solely for the system to know that they are chapters. It'll look different on what you generate. Becca, anything else pressing that I missed before we move on to the inside?
I sent you several questions. I also added in the chat that the front matter is also where, if you like to do funny dedications, I put an example of my funny dedications. I have a funny dedication in every single one of my books. I write a lot of contemporary romance. Being snarky is encouraged. So if you write something a little bit more serious, then make sure your tone matches what the content is. But my favorite, one of my marketing things is I get people screenshotting my dedications and sharing it with my book title because it makes them laugh, or it makes them go, oh my gosh, what is this? So just to add that, always be thinking of how you can sell your book. And for me, that's something that's worked for me because it's funny. And this is where you would put it. Put it in the front matter.
Yeah. And I am seeing your other questions. Right now, we don't have the ability yet to put other images in the AutoCrit formatting. This is still a newer tool for us. We know that it's something you guys have requested, so our team has it on our list of suggestions. So outside of the front image, you're not going to be able to have large images like for children's books or maps or things like that quite yet. You may still want to export out of AutoCrit, which you can do by going over here to the export button and export it out as a docx file and upload it into a software that's more designed to that graphic style interior for now. But thank you for the suggestion. Introduction and conclusion are definitely more appropriate for self-help. You can title them whatever you would want to title them when you create them in that front matter. Just remember you're going to the book details and adding on up here to these pages to create those. And then you would type something like, I have acknowledgments, introduction, conclusion. Now, you won't need to do conclusion. It's at the end of your book. So don't put that in your front matter. Anything in the book details tab is front matter. Don't put back matter here. I recommend, and we'll sort of leave this here and then come back to some more questions after we get going with the middle, because I do see that there's a lot of questions about the interior of the book. We do not recommend formatting ahead of time if you're going to use an automated tool, regardless of what that tool is going to be, because you are going to have to undo your manual formatting in order to use that tool's automated code. So this way, you saw I just took mine out. I can have AutoCrit automatically change my entire book to the indents that I want, to the spacing that I want, to the font that I want with one setup. And then I can make that a template to apply to my entire series. And then I just open the next book, click the button, and it auto applies everything. If I have manually formatted as I went, then if I tell the system, make sure that every paragraph has one indent, it's not going to be able to tell whether the paragraph has an indent like here, where I uploaded it with the indent, or whether it started at the beginning of the sentence. And so some of my sentences might end up with two indents. That would not be ideal. If you have already completely formatted your book, more or less, and you're happy with it, there is an option to have it just use the formatting you've already done. And we will show that in just a second when we look at the middle. But if you are wanting it to use the automated one and save yourself some time and set everything up with just a few clicks, then we recommend keep it as plain as possible. Just your basic italics. Don't worry about your indents. Don't worry about spacing. Don't worry about headers. The system will do all of that for you. You can do the front matter even if you're going to use your own formatting. So the front matter book details tab you would use regardless. If you're coming from another site, that's a good question too. If you're coming from another site and you're bringing your work into AutoCrit, there are options usually in the export feature to export it as a plain text docx. And that is going to look a little odd when you first export it, because that means you're losing all the formatting you're used to seeing, the spacing, the indents, some of the icons. You are going to have to manually type in your chapters at the top of every chapter. But once you do it once, you're set. And if you do your other books in AutoCrit, then you should be good going forward. I've brought almost 10 books in from outside of AutoCrit and then also written a few here in the system. It is so much easier to just write it here and have everything done here than the ones that I had to bring out of other software, compile, and then bring in. So it can be done. It just takes a little bit of time. All right, let's get to the meat of the story. So the meat of the story is going to be the content of your book itself, your primary content, what the readers are there to actually read. Things you have to think about and prepare for from a stylistic preference is how big you want your headings to be, what fonts you want to use, whether or not you want chapter subtitles, whether you're going to have place, POV, and time in there, whether you want dinkus icon images, or if you're going to leave them the standard 3 asterisks. Dinkuses are the scene break icons. So they go between shifting POVs, big time skips, or setting shifts in a story so that the reader knows that a big change is about to happen. Whether or not you want page numbers, and if you do, where do you want them? On the top, on the bottom, the middle, the left, the right, and how you want to have your headers and footers set up in the story, as well as the text itself, right? So if we go back over to AutoCrit, right here, and we've set up our front matter now, and we're wanting to set up the meat of our story, we will do that under the Style and Theme tab. There are a couple things that you'll want to do to prep your file before you go ahead and set everything. If you have, for example, I have multi-POV books. If you are going to use the character name as a heading, meaning you want it to be up at the top with your chapter and not in the text body itself, you'll want to change this over here to one of these subheadings. Typically, heading 1 is going to be chapters. That is what your chapter titles are set up as if you have them set here in the Story Analyzer's auto-find chapter setup. If your chapters are showing here, they're going to show in the table of contents. They are already header 1. If you're going to do a chapter name, you guys know that I'm notoriously bad at coming up with good chapter names. They're really hard to get right. Don't do this. The one where the queen saves the humans. Congratulations. That's a bad chapter name because I just gave you the whole point of that chapter and you can now skip it. No, if you are going to use chapter names, first make sure that they are hooking without giving away what happens in the chapter outright, and then maybe make them a heading 2. This is going to, I know it's not going to look right now. It's okay. It doesn't have to look right quite yet. It'll look right when it comes out. This is going to put it as a subtitle. Then if you're going to do a POV, that would typically be 3. If you're going to do a timestamp, Monday, February 17th, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, that would be the next header down. Depending on how many chapters you get, there we go. We got 4 headings. You might have to go through. You can jump chapter to chapter by doing this. Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, so on and so forth. Most of us, though, if you just write standard chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and you don't have names, POV headers, places, and things like that, you can just leave it as chapter 1 and let that be it for your prep. That is literally the only prep we are asking you to do beyond tell the system where your chapters are up here. So upload your file, make sure you've auto-found chapters so that all your chapters are here, and then if you have subtitles for chapters, POV names, and times and places, those would all need to be formatted for each chapter. But that's it though. After that, sit back, fill out a template, and apply it to the file. We're going to go through how to do a template. The template option is the exact same as this active settings tab, except templates are saved for the entire series. So you can see one I have here for my Lord's Gambit series looks very different than the template I have here for this series because each one has its own look and feel. So if I'm going to create one for Duets of Dusk and Dawn, that specific series, then I might want to give it its own fonts and sizes and expectations for readers. If you have already painstakingly formatted your entire file, this first option, maintain fonts in document, should be checkmarked. That is where you are telling the system you have already formatted it the way you want it. If you have not and you just have bare bones, this is where you're going to come through and you're going to set everything up for your preference. So I want my main paragraphs to be Times New Roman. And because of my e-reader size preferences, I like 11-point font for my ebooks. If I want the chapter title to be a little bigger, I can make the chapter title 22-point font. Your heading number 1, this is your subtitle. I'm going to make it an 18. Heading font number 2, and then so on and so forth. Down the list we go. Heading font number 3 is typically going to be the closest to the regular text size. I'm going to put it here at 14. And then, once I'm done setting all of that up, I'm going to scroll down and tell it what I want it to do with other stylistic preferences in the book. So my first sentence of every chapter, I want to have a drop cap. That is where this first letter here, when, is going to be bigger in the book that the readers see. And small caps instead of drop caps. But I like drop caps at the beginning of a chapter. I don't like drop caps personally after a scene break where there's a POV shift or something and we're still inside the exact same chapter. So for those, I tell it to lead in small caps. But if you like drop caps in both, you can use drop caps in both. Next, you're going to tell it how you would like the chapter heading aligned. A lot of us are going to align center. You can also leave it aligned left if you would prefer it to be aligned to the left. If you have formatted your own book and it's pretty much ready to go, you just want it converted to EPUB, you would leave your paragraph formatting the way it's already been formatted in the document. But again, just like with the text choices, if you want the system to automatically do it for you, you would click Set New Paragraph Formatting, and it's going to tell you to automatically indent to however much you give. You can make it a bigger indent or less wide indent. You can tell it that you want the paragraphs to be, what I typically do is 1.5 space, but you could do double spacing here, and you can do line spacing. So you can say, I want my line spacing to be double, single, 1.5. And then most of the time in a print book, paragraphs are justified. That means that sentences stretch or shrink in just a tiny bit in order to fit everything in one pretty block instead of what I have right now is a line left and the right-hand side is all over the place. Some stick out more than the others. It's something visually appealing that most people don't think about. Okay. So down here, you then get to choose whether you want to keep the default scene icons you've already used or the asterisk, the 3 asterisks, ding, ding, ding. Or you can upload a custom scene break image. Now, scene break images are not usually bigger than the height of a line of text. So see if this line of text right here and this line of text here, if there was a scene break in between them, it wouldn't be a huge thing that would take up half this page. It would just be a very small icon that would go down in between here. So keep that thought in your mind when you're picking a scene break icon. How much space is it taking up on your page? Also make sure that you have the license in order to use the scene break icons. We are not going to check for licensing rights for you. So you have to make sure you own the commercial use license if you're going to put it in a piece that you're going to sell in the US. There might be different licensing rights in other places if you're publishing somewhere else. Once you've picked how you want to do your scene break icons, you'll come down to headers and footers. And you can pick your header and footer layout here. You can decide, hey, I want my page numbers in the middle on the bottom, and I want the author title top here and here. I want page numbers at the top with the author and title. I want author and title to the right. I want the page numbers to the left and the right. However you would like those set up, you can do as easily as clicking the button. The system will automatically figure out how many pages are in your chapter based on the size of the font you pick, the spacing for the paragraphs and lines that you pick, and this box here, which is your trim size. Trim size is the physical copy of the book. How big is it? How wide and how tall? So 6x9 is a popular US trade size for fiction, in hardbacks especially. So as a fantasy writer, I use that for my fiction hardbacks. I use 5.25 by 8 or 5.5 by 8.5 for my paperbacks most of the time. The exact same book put through a paperback is going to have a different page count if it's 5.5 by 8.5 because it has less physical space on which to print, and you've told it to print the same spacing and the same size text regardless of the trim. So it's going to take more pages to get your work across. So instead of having to figure out, oh, how many pages are in each chapter when it's a 6x9, and then go manually update your table of contents, and then come back and go, how many pages are in my paperback while it's a 5.5 by 8.25, and then redo it all. The system will do it for you. Just tell it which trim size you want. Come back here again, change the size, click save, and it will apply the new one. So I'm going to click save here. This has now created my brand new template for Duets of Dusk and Dawn. So I can ignore the active settings because I have told it that this is the one that I want to use. So I'm going to click Apply Style. That automatically fills out this active settings tab with everything for that series, and any other books that I open in AutoCrit from now on will have that template available to apply. You can also edit if you don't like something about it, which I'll show you in a second. Now here is my preview for preview and publish. You get to preview what it would look like as an EPUB, and you get to preview what it looks like as a PDF. If I say, ooh, I don't really like that size, that the one where the queen saves the human, that size is just too big for me, go back to your template, click edit, and say, okay, I want that font to be way smaller. I don't like that font at all. So I'm going to make this Times New Roman, and I'm going to take it down to 16. And then I'm going to save. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to click Apply Style. So that way it updates my file, and then I'm going to go back again. And what do you know? Now it's smaller, but now my date is bigger. So you can adjust real time before you generate your file out. All right, and then when you're ready to download it, which we're not quite yet, we have to get to our back matter. You can click Download PDF for your print ready PDF. You see my head and my name at the top on one page, title on the top on the other page, page numbers at the bottom. Great. You can see that I've replaced my scene break icon with this little image, a little tilde swirl for my scene break. Probably going to take that out at the top of the chapter, but I can catch doing what is called a galley proof, what I like and don't like. Right now I have the book set to 0 indents. I don't really like 0 indents. Maybe I should go back and add an indent. So all of those settings can be adjusted. You can go back and forth between them. Once you get it right for one book, though, you've got it for most of your books. All right. Let's go back to our slides a minute, and then we will answer questions. That is the majority of your formatting, though. And I know it might feel like a lot, but we know that you guys have got this. If you have several print editions, can you add extra ISBNs? So, Helen, I don't know what country you're in. And Becca, I don't know if you want to speak to this at all. In my experience, I have a hardback and a paperback and an EPUB and an audiobook of my debut, Epic Fantasy. You can only have one ISBN printed inside of a print book. So you can update your ISBN number in AutoCrit when you shift from the hardback to the paperback version. But if you try to put 2 print ISBNs on a title page or a copyright page, the retailers will usually kick it back as confusing. So you can't usually list off just one bulk list. You have to manually change them out. So generate the one for your hardback first with the hardback ISBN you've registered. Then generate one for the paperback book and with the ISBN you registered for the paperback book. Then with the one you registered for the ebook, then with the one you registered for the audiobook. And if you're using the free ISBNs, those should be generated before you upload your file. When you first click upload or create a book in like KDP or Draft to Digital, it will say, do you want a free ISBN? And you click yes, and it gives it to you there because it knows you need it for your front matter, and you would put it there at that time. But you can't go use the free Amazon ISBN on Draft to Digital. It can only be used on Amazon. So then you would need the copy you got for free for Amazon, and then the ISBN you got for Draft to Digital. So I don't know, Becca, if you've got any thoughts to add to that.
Not really. I mean, for a lot of my series, I honestly just use the free ones wherever possible. And then if I'm doing special editions and things like that, I will do I buy my ISBNs in bulk and I do it that way. But my special edition formatting is so completely different than my regular formatting because I have like extra images and things like that go in there that it just becomes an entirely separate project.
Yeah. So formatting, we got a couple questions about when to format. I personally do not format my books for beta readers. Now, I do format my books for ARC readers, my advanced reader copy people. Beta reading is typically part of your developmental editing process. So for me, I write the garbage draft that no human should ever see. Then I self-dev edit it with the AutoCrit story analyzer tools, the reverse outlining tools, and then I send it to my amazing professional beta reader who is a dev editor for a living and does professional beta reads on the sides. She is used to seeing much worse, much more unedited garbage drafts. And again, it doesn't make sense to go through the pain of formatting something just to have to break it all apart in order to do the revisions that she's going to tell me I have to do. So I would not do it for the beta read level. I'm still going to have to make major changes to my content. I won't even line and copy edit before I send it to a beta reader usually. Like I'll do a quick typo check, but that's it. Then when you get the book completely done and it's not quite ready to come out yet, you can format it for your ARC readers, advanced reader copy readers, and then they get the prettier version that looks more like the book they're used to feeling. And ARC readers are usually casual readers and they aren't expecting rough garbage draft books. So that's my personal preference. I have also made use of systems like BookFunnel, which is not an AutoCrit partner. That's just my personal recommendation to watermark my ARC copies and make sure that my content is safe because it's not published yet and I'm giving it out to these people. But those are all, again, personal preferences. Whether or not you format your book for self-publication or for querying, it is helpful to go ahead and know how to format. A lot of agents do ask for basic formatting setup in books, like send me a book with this spacing and with this size font and in this font and do this and that and the other thing. You can use your AutoCrit formatting tools to help you set that up easily. If you are not going to do the EPUB, you will have to format the actual manuscript itself, but you can do that by highlighting everything in the file. Go back over here for a second. Here we go. If they want it in Word and you are querying to an agent, you can do a Control A. Again, I've cleared all my formatting out. And they say, hey, send me this book. I want it in Times New Roman 12, single spaced. Then I can go here. I can click Times New Roman. Boom, my whole book is Times New Roman. I can go up to this. I can click here. And boom, my whole book is in 12-point font. They want it single spaced. I can go to spacing and click single, and then boom, it's all single space. So, and then just like that, I have a copy for the agent. Now, something I do is do a save as, go to your save button, do save as when you're actually doing the body itself. Choose a project. So here we go. And say Slayer Queen for agent name. That way, you know that that was who you pitched it to, so you can have it for your list. And two, it's exactly the way they wanted it, and then you don't accidentally send the wrong agent, the wrong style. It's very normal for people to query a lot of different agents at once. Let's see. Quote in a book before the book starts in book details or style theme. Margie, if you're going to use a lot of them, like at the beginning of every chapter, then I would just put it at the top of the chapter and type it out. If it's going to need a whole page by itself and it's only the beginning, then I would do it in the front matter for sure. Lisa, in AutoCrit, you can click anywhere and go to punctuation to add an M dash or an N dash here in the system. There's also keyboard shortcuts you can use if you have a number pad and you're on a PC, but I would just insert it like this, and that will add it to wherever you have clicked. We are going to save some time for back matter here, so we are going to wait to answer some of these technical questions, finish our back matter, and then we'll stay on a few extra minutes to answer any extra questions. The publisher image is not the cover. It's a very small icon. If you look at the spine of Lord of the Rings, for example, Tolkien's little circle with his initials and the little stars, and when we see that on a spine, we know that that's his, even though we don't know which title. It's like, oh, well, that's a Tolkien book automatically. It's typically going to be a very small image. And yes, you can have one as an author, like Tolkien did. He did not self-publish his own books, but he had an icon. Or you can have one as Becca does and as I do as part of your business. All right.
If you decide to make it more complicated for yourself, you can also do one for series. I do have series that have their own series logo and series icon that goes on the spine. However, I have a cover designer who handles that for me because I would be hopeless in formatting that specific for image. But yes, your cover image and your full wrap for your print is completely different than the image you're going to upload for an ebook format if you're using AutoCrit. Just wanted to clarify that.
And yes, when you do justified in AutoCrit, the system will automatically update the spacing. You're not manually, please don't manually put spaces in your words. So if I go back to my style and theme here, and I open it up, and I go down to the paragraph options, and I tell it to justify all paragraphs. As you can see in this preview right here, my paragraphs are all adjusted. Here's my spacing, all done. So I don't have to worry about any of that. I can just set it up with a click. Just because AutoCrit gives you the option to use these fonts does not mean that the retailer you are using or the printer or distributor you are using will also have the same fonts. So again, there are standard fonts that everybody uses. If you're looking for a special font, please do check whether it is on the free to use font list or not. You can do that with a Google search. Just type font, free to use font, ? And then it will tell you whether you can use it or not, because your printer or your distributor has to have the font in order to reproduce it for you. If they don't, you might get an error when you go to upload your file that says something like unsupported font is in your text, please fix and re-upload all over again. So there are typically 3 key sections to your back matter. Remember, you're going to have the action item, the thing that you want your readers to go on to do. This is prime real estate. It is probably the most converted real estate in your book. You're going to have an epilogue or appendix at the back of the book in almost every genre. You're going to have a glossary if you use one at the back of the book. Please do check with other books in your genre though. If other books in your genre don't really have these things, then it might be a little odd to include them. Readers might not be expecting them. If they do include them, you want to put them where a reader's going to expect it. If you are writing nonfiction, your sources should be listed in the back of the book right here. Teasers, this is that prime real estate we were talking about. So you've got your summary of the book, your epilogue appendix with your glossary and sources, all of that back thing that ties up what we just read. That's section 1. Section 2 is your teaser. What are you asking them to do? Are you giving them the first chapter of the next book in the series with a link to buy? Are you giving them the next chapter in a series with a link to sign up to your newsletter to hear when it comes out? Because if they made it to the end of your book, they like your book most likely, and they are going to do something. So you want them to review it, you want them to rate it, you want them to buy the next book. Just remember, as my coach once told me, every ask that you give a reader at the end decreases the likelihood that they will click and do what you asked. So if you have one major ask and make it very targeted, you are a lot more likely to get that ask than if you say, please buy book 2 and then leave me a review and then sign up for my newsletter. So pick the one that is the most important to you. And then if you are going to have a biography or about the author, that is typically seen at the very, very, very end of the piece. When you do this in AutoCrit, we don't have a tool for your back matter like we have for the front with the book details. And you also want your back matter to be included in table of contents. So it is very important that you go to the end of your actual text and include it here. If you're going to have an epilogue, for example, put your epilogue here. If you're going to have another teaser, put your teaser here. Your glossary should be here. And the reason you want to do that and then add these things to your chapters dropdown is so that they will print out as part of your table of contents and it will be given page numbers. We do want page numbers on back matter where we didn't before. So here I got my epilogue again. I'm going to add it to my table of contents by highlighting it and clicking the plus sign and clicking save. Then I can type it out. About the author, same thing. Type it in, add it with the plus sign, and save it, and then just put your content inside. Write out your epilogue, write out your about the author, yada, yada, yada. Write out your teaser, and then that will add it to the end of your table of contents. All right. So many questions. I know we are right here at time, so thank you all for bearing with us. If you want to try these tools for yourself, we are going to stay on for questions, but if you want to try these tools for yourself, we do have a special running right now, so you can click the link. I think we're going to drop it in the chat and grab AutoCrit Pro and see what you think. Is there a way to make the different sections of the AutoCrit layout smaller, where it says chapter 1 is a very small space to actually work? Absolutely. So if you go back to that style and theme here under publishing, you can see I have mine set smaller. Your chapter headings here are going to be heading 1. So if I want to make heading 1 bigger than 18 point, I would just come here and turn it into whatever size I want it to be. So this formatting that we're doing here today, we got a question about formatting for the spine and back cover of the book. This formatting that you're seeing here is specifically for the interior of your book. Now, it is important that you do the interior of your book before you hire your cover designers, what we call wrap, the spine and back in front of the front table of the book. The reason is that the number of pages inside the book is going to make your spine bigger or smaller. So if your book is 300 pages and my book is 700 pages, I am going to have a spine that's more than double your spine. And you're not going to know how many pages you are until you have the exported interior copy. So what I would do in that case is scroll down here, tell it, hey, I want this for my paperback, 5.25 by 8. I would generate the PDF, and then I would get the size from that PDF. I would look at the very last page. How many pages are in it? Most reputable cover designers will ask you for the number of pages. They're asking that because they need to know how big that spine is. And then they'll ask for the trim size, which should match the trim size you chose here in your active settings, the 5.25 by 8. So, and I do work with my interior design companies for special editions and things that are really artsy. I have a order form that I fill out, and the order form is the title, the theme, idea for the book, any idea, inspirational images you want, and then underneath it'll say what trim size and format. So it's asking, is this paperback 5.25 by 8 or hardback? There's a difference because hardbacks typically have dust jackets on the outside, and therefore there need to be flaps on those too. So it'll be an even bigger wrap. Is it a paperback or hardback? Is it going to have a dust jacket? Is it an audiobook, in which case it needs to be a square? What trim size do you want? 5.25 by 8 for the paperback, 6 by 9 for the hardback with a dust jacket. So you've got all that to work out too. And then you tell them that the interior for the 5.25 by 8 is this many pages. The interior for the hardback with the dust jacket is this many pages, and they will take care of the rest. Most of them have templates, in my experience, that they have used to help create one that matches what the publisher requires. And if for some reason it doesn't match up, when you get the error message back from Amazon KDP or from Draft to Digital or whoever, you can take that note, send it to the designer, and they can adjust it and send you a new rep. Good reason to not wait until the last minute to format your book. But yeah, that exterior formatting is typically done by the cover designer, and you won't be affecting that here. Okay. Are page numbers located in different places for different genres? There's a lot of genre-specific ones here, and I like page numbers either on the top or in the middle at the bottom for fantasy. It's really going to depend on the genre, though. As I said earlier, you might want to take a trip to the bookstore, flip through some books, note some things. One, how do they write their copyright blurb? Two, whether or not they put glossaries and stuff in the front of their books or the back, if that's something you're planning on doing. And three, what kind of layout? If they all have page numbers in the middle, bottom, then that might be what a reader expects. It's not a life or death thing either. You do have creative preference here. When we have a set template, can we override it? Yes. So when you apply it, it will put it in active settings. But if you go to any of these, like I just did with heading 1 and made it 42, you can override it here. You can say, hey, no, I want this one to be 20 now. And it will not affect your whole template unless you go back to the template and click on Edit Style. So just remember, if you do make changes and you want them for the whole series, that you need to be making changes on the template level, not the book specific active settings level. Scene breaks in the body of your text. Scarlett, I do like here. How do you specify scene breaks? I use 3 asterisks. I type them out. The system will look for those when it replaces them with the swivel, which is what you saw that I did. So I have this set up to use the swivel dinkus icon, and the system automatically looked for my 3 asterisks and replaced it with that icon. So many great questions. I want to make sure I get all our main formatting ones. While we're doing that, we did have an FAQ on formatting in AutoCrit office hours this past Tuesday. So if there are questions today that were answered in that, I am going to leave you that replay link in the description box for you to go back and look over. We did a whole hour, and we'll be doing another AutoCrit office hour this Tuesday at 2, or you can again hit this little help bubble if there's something specific to your work that you would like help for. Anything big I'm missing, Becca?
So we have 2 questions. One of them is could you show again how to get the chapter name in the header?
Yeah. So if you highlight your chapter name, is what I did here. Let me actually strip this the formatting real quick so that I can show all over again. Is that? If you do have a subtitle that you would like to use the heading on, you would highlight the subtitle and then choose which heading you want it to have. 1, 2, 3, or 4. And remember that the size that you see here is not the size that's going to format in your text. That size is picked by what you have here. So right now I have this set up as heading 3. It doesn't matter what I put in heading 3 over here. What matters is the size that I give it on this side in the active settings. I told it that no matter what it put, which is 20-point Arial in the file, when it sees the subtitle here, I want it to be Times New Roman 12. And then when I go to my preview, it will preview it as Times New Roman 12, as you can see here.
Awesome, thank you. And then can you address whether we have the ability to do in our back matter an uploaded photo with our author bio currently?
We do not. So right now, there's not going to be the ability to do any images. I personally save my author bio image just to use in Dust Jacket for hardback, and I'll put it on the back Dust Jacket flap with a little snippet about myself. But for my print ones, for paperbacks and my EPUBs, I don't usually include a picture. If you did want to include that more advanced formatting, then you might want to look at the more graphic based formatting tools for sure for right now. The sizes here, so we have an international team, and we do have UK and US popular sizes represented here. 5.25 by 8 and 5 by 8 is more seen in other countries, which is why US stood out by itself for these two specific titles. And some are universal. Like if you're going to do a children's book, an 8 by 5 by 8 by 5 is pretty much a common picture book, regardless of what country you're in, right? So you can do any of those things here. 8.5 by 11, or a printer paper sheet sized book is going to be more common with certain genres for younger readers, and it's going to be more common in certain nonfiction genres as well. So you can take a look at what these are. I recommend going to a print house like Ingram Spark, has a free guide by country, by trim size, and looking it up there to see which one best fits your needs. Because you don't want to be walking around the bookstore necessarily with a ruler going, oh, yes, all of these fantasy hardbacks are 6 by 9. What I did was dig out all of my fantasy hardbacks and measure them at home in the privacy of my kitchen. uh,
Someone
um,
else is, oh, go
the
ahead.
so the formatting is easy in AutoCrit, but why would you format? And again, this took time, right? It's going to take time, even though it is easy. Why would you format a book if you're just going to turn around and edit it, especially if you're not using AutoCrit, right? When I first did my first books, every time I did a major revision, like cut off the last 3,000 words and completely redo the ending, I would have to then rewrite the ending, recopy edit the ending. It would change the number of pages. It would change my widows and orphans, which is a formatting thing where you don't want to open a page with one word by itself, and you don't want to end a page um, with just this cut off sentence that then rolls over for one word on the next page, right? That's a widow and orphan situation. There's a bunch of formatting terms, and it would get to just be a cycle of not writing, not editing, getting caught up doing this every single time. And again, you're not doing this until you need the print ready PDF or the print ready EPUB, right? So you're probably not going to be formatting as you go. Unless you just like having an EPUB. And here's the thing, AutoCrit embraces all styles. So if you want to do a first chapter or two and then print it out as a PDF and see what it would look like as an actual book, that's great. If you're going to do a serial where you're going to start releasing to readers every few chapters as you write, maybe you've got a Patreon, which is super legit way to do book launches these days, then yeah, absolutely. Feel free to go ahead, format it whenever you want. AutoCrit doesn't restrict you to having to do a full novel. It's just my personal experience having wasted a whole lot of time doing this. Formatting while I'm still in the editing process takes me out of the creative process when I should really be focused other places. Punctuation choice, that's going to come down to your style guide. I know that the Chicago Manual Style, which is what I use for my own books, uses more M dashes than when I do edits for the Oxford Style Guide, which I learned in college. You hardly ever use an M dash at all. You use colons way more in Oxford and hardly at all in Chicago. So go to that style guide. We talked about this a little bit in the copy editing class. All right, any other formatting questions? I love what you said, Becca. You like to streamline your process. You have beta readers working on your manuscript. You're likely to still make edits on those chapters, and you only like formatting once. Exactly.
Time is money, friends. And this stuff does, I mean, at this point in my career, I do have a very distinct process. But if I am, if you're thinking about it, I use our dictation tools, for example, to draft a lot of my books because I am constantly busy and I have things to do. But I'm speaking or writing 180,000 words a month, and I'm also in the process of releasing a book usually while I'm doing that and dealing with my ghostwriting clients. So I want to use my time as wisely as I can because I have a limited amount of it. So I don't want to do my final pretty format until I am 100% certain that I'm not going to be changing any content and having to do it again because I want to get everything packaged up pretty and get started in my launch sequence. So that is my preference on that. And then again, in the comments, I did put in there, choose your trim size and stay consistent with it throughout your series. It is a number one way to irritate the heck out of your readers is if your trim size is all different ones for your whole series. You think about them on a shelf, you want them to match. And also think about your paper choice when you are uploading to your I've made that mistake when you're uploading to like KDP and it's going to give you a choice of whether you want white paper or cream paper. Whatever one you choose, keep it consistent throughout the series. I have someone still mad at me from 6 years ago for the fact that book 3 has cream paper and the rest of the series has white paper. And she's just like, can't you just reprint it? And I did eventually, but just save yourself the trouble.
You guys have given us some great questions. Um, I'm going to end on this one from Lucy, and then we're going to wrap it and call it a day. And then you can come back and see us for office hour or message us. But Lucy asked, how does your branding impact book formatting? Do we have to use the same fonts and styles for the book like we use for your brand? I love this because, yes, there is an unconscious image of our brand, but there's also, like Becca said earlier, with the series level publisher icons, more importantly, a consistency within your series, right? You guys saw on my templates that my grimdark, modern, apocalypse books look very different than my scrolling epic fantasy. I have a look and feel that I enjoy for my epic romanticides that just doesn't fit in my mind when I'm reading a grim, gritty vampire book. And when I have readers pick it up, I want them to know sort of the vibe without even realizing that they're getting it from the font. They're getting it from the spacing. They're getting it from the page choice and the way that I lay text out on the page. Like in the vampire book, it opens up with this scene very early on, where it does this, trying to immersively be like, step, snap, this. I wouldn't normally do that in a romantasy. Doesn't really make as much sense. And that style choice, which does come up a few times in the Grimdark, can be pushed further by my font style and my spacing style, because that shows how much time it gets on the page and how obvious it is, whether or not I want it bold. So overall, as a brand, I do have brand styles that I like, but I typically divide them by pen name and by subgenre and by series. Every book in this series should have ideally the same font, same spacing, same typical flow. Every book in my other series should have the same. I don't know if yours is the same way or not, Becca, but yeah, so Becca's nodding. But that's sort of what I would say there. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for chatting with us. Good luck. Happy formatting. If you have questions, reach out to us anytime. Take care, everybody.
Don't forget, next week we have blurbs.
Yes, we'll be back to talk about writing blurbs and synopsis next week. It'll be fun. Bring your coffee.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.